Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of Leading the Charge as we get you ready for the Bills-Broncos matchup this weekend. And hey, welcome to the playoffs, everyone. Matt Bove, Dom Tibbetts, we've got some guests along the way. Listen, we do Leading the Charge every week. We figure, why not do another one now that we're in the playoffs, right?
Hey, one is fun. Two is just a party, right? And that's what we're having here.
And the goal, of course, is that we do these every single week until the Bills season comes to an end. And who knows how long that will go. That's, of course, what we're going to talk about tonight. But we also need to specifically talk about the Denver Broncos, the matchup, some of the X factors, and the potential mismatches on both sides of things. So we've got myself, we've got Dom, and, of course, we've got Howard Simon. How could we do a show without Howard? Hi, Howard. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, boys. How we doing?
We're good.
Fantastic, Howard.
I think we're just kind of going through those playoff jitters at this point. How you feeling?
I'm liquored up. I don't know about you two.
Hey, it's 7 o'clock. You can do whatever you want.
Hey, I'm semi-retired. I can do it any time of day.
You're also at home. We're sitting here in a studio, although we might have stuff hidden. You just have no idea.
That's true. FCC probably frowns on what you guys getting drunk, but it's okay for me to do it. No, I'm
of course.
I've hit the middle of the week lull though, Matt. Like I was nervous on Monday, but I'm in that kind of tweener period where you're kind of on an emotional like middle ground, and it'll pick up probably when we hit the weekend.
What makes you nervous?
The fact that if they don't have a good day, the season's over. I mean, that's, I really, beyond that, I mean, it's just, that other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, it'll be a great year. Let's face it. This is where the Bills have gone, right? You guys, were here for part of their drought anyway. The world's changed. It doesn't matter to an extent, unless they went 17-0. It doesn't matter what the Bills do in the regular season anymore to an extent. They are ultimately judged on what happens in the playoffs. And we're still waiting for this group in this window to get to the Super Bowl. So that's one of the reasons why I'm nervous.
Howard, I totally understand where your nerves come from. I think all of Bills Mafia is feeling them because we've been down this road so many times before. But Josh Allen is your quarterback in the playoffs here, and he's got playoff experience getting into this one. How much do your concerns just get alleviated simply knowing 17 is going to be out there?
Oh, it's a heck of a lot better. I sleep a lot easier, than a whole bunch of other Bills quarterbacks that were here over the years. Yeah, that's a huge factor. I mean, look, guys, we talked a little bit about it on Monday. If you assess the Bills' Super Bowl chances, if they get to the Super Bowl this year, if they win the Super Bowl, it will be largely because of Josh Allen. It's not going to be because of the defense. It'll be because of the offense, and the offense is driven by Josh Allen. So, yeah, Dom, I mean, for the last few years, as we've talked about the Bills and their Super Bowl window, it begins with the fact that Josh Allen has turned into one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League.
I actually talked to Ed Oliver about this in practice today. He was talking about how the defensive line needs to have a big day. And I was like, well, how much comfort does it give you knowing that if you don't have your best, you've got Josh Allen on the other side of the ball? And he used kind of the term you used. He was like, he's a security blanket. He keeps us warm. We know that he's going to ball out, and that makes our life a little bit easier. But I do want to get to Lori's question because I think it's good. She says, what do we need to worry about the most from Denver? Now, we're going to answer this question twice. We're going to ask you this question, and then coming up in a little bit, we're going to ask Nick, our guest from Denver, this question because he obviously would have a great understanding of this. But what do you think? What is the biggest worry with this Broncos matchup?
Well, number one for me would be their defense. Their defense has been really good. In the last month, they've given up a few more points than they did earlier in the season, but their defensive front, their ends, their linebackers, their pass rush, their ability to get sacks, get pressure on quarterbacks. Now, the good news is, guys, the Bills' offensive line is very good, and Josh is really good at escaping potential sacks. But if there's one thing, and I think Bo Nix is good, but you asked me for the top thing, I would tell you, since I think the Bills' offense needs to carry the show, it's how will they do against that pass rush and that defensive front of Denver's, which has terrorized a lot of quarterbacks this year.
I think a lot of pass rush from the conversation of Denver also kind of weighs in Buffalo. I mean, you have to get pressure on Bo Nix. That is how you can disrupt a rookie quarterback. So in your eyes, Howard, just defensively for the Bills, what can they do to limit some of the offensive explosiveness from the Broncos side of the ball?
Yeah, you hit it, Dom, but they've got a really good offensive line. Now, this will come back and kill me, right? I don't think I'd be worried about the Denver Broncos running game beating the Buffalo Bills. If Denver has success offensively, it's because of Bo Nix and Cortland Sutton and Marvin Mims Jr. and their passing game. So I think even if you don't get sacks, this is a Sean McDermott thing, right? Affect the quarterback. Find a way. push the pocket. I know you mentioned Ed Oliver. This is one of those games we need to notice Ed Oliver frequently. But whether it's collapsing the pocket or the guys coming in on the edge, even if you can't get sacks, get some pressure, speed Bo Nix up a little bit. I think he's really good when he gets the ball out short range. We know he's got a strong arm for the deep ball. But yeah, affect the quarterback a little bit, because I think that's Denver's best bet to win this game, Bo Nix in their passing game.
Well, a couple different people here are commenting about takeaways, turnovers, and of course that always is elevated in the postseason. I brought up the box score while you were talking from the Broncos-Bills game last year.
Yeah.
So the Broncos win by 2, and we know the debacle that happened at the end of the game. The Bills had too many guys on the field. They had 4 turnovers in that game. James Cook had 2 fumbles. He had another fumble that he was able to scoop up and then run another 30 yards. And then Josh Allen throws an interception that goes right off Gabe Davis's hands into the defender's hands. Are we confident that the Bills can play a clean offensive game? I know they have this year, but are we confident they can keep doing it?
Yeah, I think so, at least for this week. Yeah, I mean, that it's not like a small sample size. I mean, we're talking about Josh Allen having career low interceptions, 6, and one of the reasons why the Bills were, I think, leading or right close to the top of takeaway giveaway ratio was because they didn't give the ball away that often. So yeah, Matt, I think they've done a really good job with ball security. I think Josh has, we've talked about it, from a decision-making standpoint and overall effectiveness, his stats don't say it. But it's his best season as a Bill. So I'm pretty confident they won't beat themselves on Sunday.
The plus 24 turnover margin, I believe, is the best in the NFL, correct,
good
for the Bills. So that's a big thing going into it, too. There's so many guys, and you mentioned the defensive line guys who need to step up. I think you have to notice Greg Rousseau. I think Von Miller, what an interesting little twinkle in the story it is for Von Miller to be going against his whole team. Howard, on the offensive side of the ball for the Bills, Josh Allen, obviously, you need him to have a big game. Offensively for you, who's a key factor that needs to kind of ball out Sunday in order for the Bills to come out with a win?
I would say Dalton Kincaid, but on the show Monday night, when Matt brought it up, Joe Piscatio shot that one down. So I'm going to go with the guy I went with. I'm going to go James Cook. It's a given. We all know that if their Bills are going to win, Josh has got a big day. Now, they have a good secondary, right? They've got one of the best corners in the league in Pat Surtain, but their top 3 corners are good. And they've got a safety who's leading the team in tackles, and he's got passes defense, and he's a real good playmaker. So honestly, fellas, if the passing game is having a little bit of an issue because of the pass rush and their secondary, I think this screams the Bills' running game has to come up and help them. They've been a little more balanced this year, right? They've leaned on the running game a little more this year than they have in the past. So I would say James Cook, Dom, would be my guy to come up and really kind of maybe be a spark if they aren't doing really well through the air.
Howard, last one from both of us. I know we asked you about your confidence and kind of your level of nerves earlier on in the show. Is this team good enough to go on a run? Not just this game. Is this team good enough?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I really do think it is. And I think for the reasons we just covered, right? The line, the quarterback, the running backs are deep. I was not a big fan of the overhaul in the wide receiver group. Don't worry, everybody will eat. But it's worked out fine. Pat Surtain's the shutdown corner. Well, the good news is, Bills fans, they don't really have a number one guy that you would say, well, if you shut this guy down, you'll beat the Bills. They just have everybody contributing. And, the defense, we talked about it. Guys, I just need them to make a handful of stops. And if it's a close game, please, Tyler Bass, don't stress me out. Hit your kicks. But I think they're good enough, absolutely, to make a run.
How are you watching the game from the fear bunker?
Come on. This is the fear bunker. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I got a lock on the door so my wife doesn't come downstairs.
He's not showing up Monday if they lose. We know that, right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm definitely not doing the show Monday if they lose. Yeah.
Well, I hope that I see you Monday. I hope I see you Monday, Howard.
Anyway. Yeah. All right, boys. Have fun.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks,
Anytime.
Howard.
See you, Howard. All right. I mean, that's Howard Simon. If he's not nervous, you shouldn't be nervous watching at home, right? Am I supposed to be nervous about the weather? Autumn Lewandowski is joining us now. It's always 70 degrees and sunny in the press box. So Dom down on the field, he has to worry about it. I don't have to worry about it. I mean, what are fans
I ask Autumn almost every Friday how it's going to look.
Yeah.
What
are fans dealing with?
Relatively speaking, with how cold it has been, we're going to luck out this weekend. What you're seeing here is the potential of some southwest winds that are going to move in, and that will allow a little bit of very light lake effect snow to come in This is prior to game time, and then around 11 or 12 coming up towards the city, and then even moving north. Now, this is still several days out as for where we might have a lake effect band, but it's fairly dry. We're not going to have much there. So you can expect kind of the cloud cover to be there, few spotty showers, snow showers, that is, and the winds. That's going to be the big difference here. It's going to be very light, so the wind you're not dealing with huge wind chills. And we're going to be closer to freezing, which is 10 degrees warmer than we've been all week long. So it might feel balmy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing 31. I'm juiced up. 31's big for me.
Yeah. We'll take 31. Can I ask you a non-weather question?
Sure.
Are you going to watch?
I am not.
You're too nervous.
I am a nervous person. We're going to be skiing this weekend, so I feel like that's a good energy.
An activity to take your mind off.
Yes, this is a game where we should win, right? But I just like to be busy doing other things, and then I don't have to worry about it.
Thank you, Autumn. Appreciate it.
Anytime.
All right, we are going to continue the conversation as we always do during the commercial break online. You can ask us questions. We can answer some of them. If you're watching on the TV side of things, don't go anywhere. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in a couple minutes. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks,
all right, what's going on, everyone? Thank you for tuning in to the stream. Thank you, Howard. We are going to be joined by Nick Rothschild from our affiliate in Denver coming up in a couple minutes. You can ask questions about the Broncos specifically. Lloyd is tuned in. We always got our love from Lloyd.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Lloyd Taco Factory, what up? We appreciate it. Let's bring up this comment from Lori. This is from Facebook. It just says news on Amari. So, Lori, he is back with the Bills. He was excused a couple days for a personal absence, but he reported back with the team either on Tuesday or Wednesday. Yeah. But we were out of practice today. Both of us were. He was out practicing.
Today was the first
everything
time we
normal.
got to see him. It sounded like even yesterday he was back with the team going through walkthroughs.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, like you want to have as many guys as possible, right? And overall, actually, the Bills are really healthy at this point of the year. You knock on like your fake wood here, right? But compared to last year, their injury list was super long. This year, Brandon Codrington, their kick and punt returner, really the only name on it. And we saw even he practiced today.
Yeah, which is obviously a very good sign moving forward. I also just think, too, is like the Bills have the luxury where last season, Matt, they had to win, 6 games in a row? Yeah. And they got down to week 18 against Miami, and it was either make the playoffs at one point before that Jacksonville scenario happened, make the playoffs and you get the 2 seed, or you don't make the playoffs at all. So you got the week of rest, too, which I think is very helpful as well. Like, I think Terrell Bernard is a guy that everybody's going to think of as like, hey, that was a guy who wasn't available when they lost to Kansas City last year. You get guys like him healthy, or ramping Matt Milano back up on the defensive side of the ball. All things, knock on wood, moving in the right direction injury-wise for the Bills.
Sam just asked us a question on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Hey, Matt, how is Codrington looking today? So I actually talked to him after practice. He said the only thing he did today was catch punts. Now, he said that's a fairly normal day of practice for him, but sometimes he'll also do a couple different defensive reps. I asked, do you think you're going to play on Sunday? He said he was feeling pretty good and hit me with a we'll see. Now, normally, the reason I'm a bit skeptical is because normally players are always overconfident. Normally, players are always like, yeah, I'm going to go, I'm going to play. So it might just be like young player ignorance a little bit of like he genuinely just does not know. I'm sure he's going to push to play, but I think the fact that we saw him at practice and catching punch is a very good sign.
Yeah, and it's not like the Bills aren't going to be prepared. If Codrington can't go, there are other guys on this roster that they can suit up and put into that position as well.
How much time do we have until we come back on TV?
Seconds.
We have 30 seconds. Question from Alex Brasky on Facebook.
Oh, boy.
How does Dom get his hair like that?
That is starting. Well, shout out to, I think it's Cremo is the product that I throw in there, and then Rave Maximum 5-hold hairspray.
I see in the top corner a Lead in the Charge logo. I see under that a Picasso's logo. But if there are any hair products that want to sponsor the program, we are open and willing.
Tresemme, I could switch over to you at any moment.
Easy breezy Tibbets. How much? All right, welcome back, everyone. Thank you for the questions during the commercial break. We were just talking about Dom's lovely head of hair and the products that he used to keep it nice and perfect.
I used to have a buzz cut in high school, like a 1-2 fade. I've come such a long way. My barber and I have just been on a steady mountain of growth together.
You want to talk about the Broncos?
Of course I do.
Or do you want to talk about your hair more?
No, the Broncos. Let's give the people what they want.
All right, we are going to be joined now by Nick Rothschild. He is from our sister station in Denver, the Denver Channel. Nick, thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Do I get a vote? I'd like to talk about Dom's hair as well.
We will talk about Dom's hair if we can talk about your mustache.
Touche. I don't use any Tresemme on this thing. This is all natural, baby.
It's beautiful.
It's
Have you always done the mustache?
No. So this was every November I would grow it for
Love it.
charity. And last year I asked our management if I could keep it. My wife and I just welcomed our first son in August, so I felt like the dad vibes were high.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'd like to try the mustache out. And she said, as long as I keep it clean, I can keep it and people don't hate it. So here we are.
New baby, new mustache. Your levels of dad strength must be infinite.
I am wearing the whitest New Balances you've ever seen under this desk.
I love that. I love that. Listen, the Broncos going into the season, they don't have like all of the preseason buzz. A lot of people thought they might be one of the worst teams in the NFL. How the heck did they get here?
I think several outlets picked them to have the number 1 overall pick in the draft in 2025. And yeah, I mean, it all comes down to the quarterback, right? In the NFL, winning or losing generally gets ascribed to the quarterback, even though it's not that simple. But Bo Nix and Sean Payton have been a match made in heaven, and that's really created a formula on offense that has been able to win football games. I think Nix's accuracy, his unflappability, he's a hard sack, like Sean Payton likes to tell us almost every week. His athleticism was better than what they saw when they were scouting him before they drafted him. So I think he's just really elevated the offensive side of the ball with his professionalism. And on defense, I think in addition to Vance Joseph's scheme being highly aggressive and hard to deal with for an offensive line, they've got a bunch of young guys that are kind of interchangeable on their front seven. That makes it really hard to either slide coverage or key on a pass rusher. Like, look, if you've got a Von Miller on one side, you know you're always going to double him, and then you got to figure out what you're doing elsewhere. With this offense, other than Nick Bonito, who's had an amazing year, like nobody's really, or coming into the year and through most of the season, nobody was really a known commodity on that defensive line. So they've been able to get pressure at a high rate. Bo Nix has been better than advertised. And I think that's, if you want me to boil it down to something simple, that's why they're in the playoffs.
Well, offensively, I mean, you talk about it 7 years ago when Josh Allen was a rookie. Here for Bo Nix, you're going to be better if you have a multitude of weapons around you. And it seems like just in the receiving core, Nick, that he has a multitude of weapons to go to. What's been the dynamic of just that receiver room and how that's elevated not only Bo's play, but this Denver offense to maybe exceed the expectations that were put on them?
Well, I think the receivers have also been sort of a nice surprise. I mean, we had high expectations for Marvin Mims when he was drafted last year, but that was never really fully realized with Russ at quarterback. And I don't want to put it all on one guy because I think part of the scheming was wrong for Mims last year. I think after a year of seeing what his best attributes were, Sean Payton is now using him differently in the offense this year. But yeah, I mean, Cortland Sutton had a lot of question marks heading into the season. A lot of people didn't think he'd be on this team through the whole year. And he has been such a steadying force, especially on third down. He's sort of that security blanket, what you would normally ascribe to maybe a tight end. That's kind of been what Cortland Sutton's role has been for Bo Nix. And then like a guy like Devon Vele, 7th round pick, not necessarily a heralded guy, but he's reliable. He runs good routes and he blocks really well. So that got him on the field early, and it's kept him on the field late. Yeah, I think the nice thing when you have a young core, both at your quarterback and at skill positions, is they cannot kind of grow together. Now, Cortland is obviously the elder statesman in this group, but you've seen a lot of growth, especially in the relationship between Nix and Mims, that I think that organic relationship and that the way that's grown throughout the season has made them really dynamic here as we head into the playoffs.
Nick, the last one from us, and this is a question I always like to ask people who cover other teams. What is a reason they can win, and what's a reason that they can lose?
I'll give you 2 reasons why they can win. Number one, that front seven is really dangerous. It may not have anyone you've ever heard of before, but they get pressure at a better rate than anybody in the NFL, especially up the middle. Zach Allen is one of the best defensive tackles at putting pressure on quarterbacks. And in that game against Houston that the Bills lost and everything looked just off, we can throw that away as an outlier. But the one thing Houston did really well is bringing defensive pressure up the middle and forcing Josh Allen off of his spot. If Denver can do that, gives them a really good chance. The other thing that the Broncos do really well offensively with a guy like Marvin Mims is screens, tunnel screens to the outside, wide receiver screens. It's an extension of their running game. I heard you talking with Howard about Not really worried about the Broncos running game, and rightfully so, because it hasn't been great this year. But if you include the screen game as an extension of the running game, Buffalo gives up one of the highest percentage of plus screen plays or plus passing plays inside of 10 yards. They're the 7th worst team in the league, according to ESPN's Bill Barnwell, at that specific thing. And that is one of the things in the Sean Payton offense that the Broncos do really well. So if they can hit a couple of those for big plays, and if they can use that to move the chains where they would use, other teams might use like simple outside zone running, I think that could do enough to keep the Broncos in this game that if it's close in the fourth quarter, guys, you're already nervous. How nervous are you going to be if the game is close in the fourth quarter? I think, the Broncos have, no pressure, house money sort of game for them. They can do those two things, get pressure on Josh Allen, move him off his spot, and keep the chains moving with tunnel screens. Could get dicey out there in Buffalo come the fourth quarter on Sunday.
Nick, I think you just terrified everyone, so I think we're going to tell you to leave now.
Oh, and if you want reasons why the Broncos can lose, they're not as good as Buffalo.
There you go.
It's an easy evaluation. The Buffalo Bills are a better team with a better quarterback, but that's not always who wins in these games, right? In a one-game sample.
Yeah. Nick, thank you so much. We absolutely appreciate it. We love the insight. And actually, we're going to be talking in a couple minutes, so we'll chat in just a few minutes.
Rock on.
Thanks, Nick. Nick, thank you so much.
Yeah,
we're
man.
on a commercial break now.
Like
we
doing
love
it.
it. That was fantastic. We'll talk in like 10 minutes or so. All right. Any questions? Do we want to float Shakir? Do we have time for Shakir in the control room? They're going to have to talk to you.
Scabs, do we want to float Shakir? Do we have time for Shakir? It's 2 minutes and 13 seconds.
We can just answer some questions. We can just answer questions
We can just
during
answer
the next,
questions instead.
and then just do final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Be really tight, but she thinks we can squeeze it.
We can fit Shakir. All right, everyone. If you're listening, we're going to do a feature story on Khalil Shakir coming up. Let's see. Questions. Oh, this isn't a question. This is from Lori. Matt, I love football, and I never want the season to end. I think that's probably correct. Lloyd, no drama on the field either. It is funny that last year, right, we're talking about all of these different sub-stories that are going on in the season. We don't have any of that right now. Let's see. People appreciated the update. Cook is the new Diggs. Yeah, I mean, he's the new number one weapon offensively, right? Besides Josh Allen?
Yeah, of course. I mean,
Except maybe Khalil Shakir, who you can find out coming out in just a couple minutes.
But it is hard because James Cook has, 16 rushing touchdowns and 18 or 19 total touchdowns in the season. So that, as much as I'm looking forward to sharing this Khalil Shakir story with everybody, James Cook is very much kind of solidified as the second best offensive threat. But again, everybody, we're going to hear it in a couple seconds here, is like everybody can get involved, and it doesn't really matter. There's not really one guy, to Howard's point, that's like why a guy like Pat Surtain, for how good he is as a cornerback, and I'm not trying to diminish his value, he doesn't have a Stephon Diggs, the wide receiver, prototypical number one guy to match up with. Stick him on Amari, you have Khalil and Max still to worry about, Dalton Kincaid and Dawson, right? You move him around anywhere against any Bills wide receiver, it's like moving a chess piece. You always feel like Joe Brady's going to have another move to go to.
How long until we are back?
Skeps, what's our 45 seconds.
Okay. I mean, this is a comment from Darius. I don't think anybody in Buffalo is worried about Bo Nix. Ooh, I don't know if I would agree with that, Darius.
Ooh.
I think that he's got a lot of reasons to be, if you're a Broncos fan, he's exciting. He can do a lot.
That's the next point. Like, they are playing with house money. I think that's a good, he's going to go in there with nothing to lose. He's going to have to get some very early learning experience going in a playoff atmosphere at Highmark Stadium. That's not going to be easy. But to say Bo Nix is not going to have a good game, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that.
Just need Josh Allen to have a better game, and he's certainly capable.
A little bit.
Just toss to the package.
I'm just going to go. I'll intro the package. We'll do this feature story and have at it. And welcome back, everybody. So by now, at this point in the season, everybody eats in the Buffalo Bills offense. And one of the guys who has done that the best in the wide receiver room, Khalil Shakir.
Buffalo Bills wide receiver Khalil Shakir met every expectation and then some this season.
They fake a pitch. It's an inside handoff to Shakir, and he's leaping into the end zone for the touchdown.
For me, it was just putting my head down and going to work. I don't think I ever changed my approach to any other day to try and do more, you know, and get outside of who I am.
821 yards on 76 receptions, both the highest among any pass catcher in the Bills offense, and his breakout season may come as a surprise to some. But for head coach Sean McDermott, that's far from the case.
I think sometimes people mistake discipline for robotic. He's disciplined, and he's been a big-time staple of our offense, not only this year, but in the year or two leading up to this year as well.
To better understand where Shakir's unrivaled discipline comes from, we had to head west to Boise, Idaho, home of the Boise State Broncos, Shakir's alma mater, and his former wide receiver coach, Matt Miller.
Like the first time you see him catch the ball, you're like, yeah, this guy's this guy, an innate ability to catch everything thrown his way.
From the moment Miller met Shakir, he knew he had the it factor, born from his relentless attitude and the blue-collar mentality fostered on Boise's famed blue turf.
Be unassuming, have that chip on your shoulder, be the underdog, and all those fruits of your labor is going to come to life.
Down to the 3-2, reaching for the goal line, and he's in. Khalil Shakir.
It's been going on since last year. It's been going on since he was a high school guy in Murrieta, California.
And that's where Shakir, a former running back in the early part of his football career, started to develop his biggest skill set, the ability to create yards after the catch.
I was so scared of getting hit, I just started running around. And my dad took this, oh my gosh, like, you know, we got something here, you know. And all I literally did was run back and forth and then run and go score, like, because I was so scared of getting hit. And from that point on, I think he knew that I had the ability to do special things with the game.
And the good news for the Bills is that Shakir doesn't appear to be afraid of contact anymore, which shows nearly every time he steps on the field. Reporting Dom Tibbetts, 7 Sports, Orchard Park.
Yeah, that guy is going to be very important for the Bills offense come Sunday, man.
All right, thanks everyone. Special edition of Leading the Charge. We want to thank Howard. We want to thank Nick. We want to thank Dom, Matt, Julia, Nick in the control room. Everybody have a lovely weekend. We'll talk to you guys in a couple days.
See ya. Oh, yeah.
All right, thanks, y'all. I will join that new. I actually see Nick still in here. I'll join that other.